There's actually an increasing number of people internally at Anthropic that are using like a lot of credits, like spending like over $1,000 every month. We see this like power user behavior. This is something that they teach in YC. If you can solve your own problem, it's much more likely you're solving the problem for others. There's this like really old idea in product called latent demand. You build a product in a way that is hackable, that is kind of open-ended enough that people can abuse it for other use cases it wasn't really designed for. And you build for that because you kind of know there's demand for it.
Do you think the CLI is the final form factor? Are we going to be using Claude Code in the CLI primarily in a year or in 3 years, or is there something else that's better?
This podcast is sponsored by Google. Hey folks, I'm Amar, product and design lead at Google DeepMind. We just launched a revamped vibe coding experience in AI Studio that lets you mix and match AI capabilities to turn your ideas into reality faster than ever. Just describe your app and Gemini will automatically wire up the right models and APIs for you. And if you need a spark, hit I'm feeling lucky and we'll help you get started. Head to ai.studio/build to create your first app.
Kat, Boris, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. So for people who don't know you, you are the creators of Claude Code. Thank you very much from the bottom of my heart. It's I love Claude Code.
That's amazing to hear. That's what we love to hear.
I think the place I want to start is when I first used it, there was like this moment, like I think it was around when Sonnet 3.7 came out, where I was like, I used it and I was like, holy shit, this is like a completely new paradigm. It's a completely new way of thinking about code. And the big difference was you went all the way and just eliminated the text editor, and you're just like, all you do is like talk to the terminal, and that's it. And you know, previous paradigms of AI programming, previous harnesses have been like you have a text editor and you have the AI on the side, and it's kind of like, or it's a tab complete. So take me through like that decision process, that process of architecting this new paradigm. How'd you think about that?
Yeah, I think the most important thing is it was not intentional at all.
Okay.
We sort of ended up with it. So at the time when I joined Anthropic, we were still on different teams at the time. There was this previous predecessor to Claude Code. It was called Clyde, like CLIDE. At Anthropic. And it was this like research project, you know, it took like a minute to start up. It was this kind of like really heavy Python thing. It had to like run a bunch of indexing and stuff. And when I joined, I wanted to ship my first PR. And I hand wrote it like a, you know, like a noob in a time. Like I didn't know about any of these tools.
Thank you for admitting that on the podcast.
I didn't know any better. And then I put up this PR, and Adam Wolf, who was the eng manager for our team for a while, he was my ramp-up buddy, and he just like rejected the PR. And he was like, you wrote this by hand? What are you doing? Use Clyde. Because he was also hacking a lot on Clyde at the time. And so I tried Clyde. I gave it the description of the task, and it just like one-shotted this thing. And this was like, you know, Sonnet 3.5. So I still had to fix the thing even for this kind of basic task. And the harness was super old, so it took like 5 minutes to churn this thing out, and just took forever. And but it worked, and I was just mind blown that this was even possible. And they just kind of got the gears turning. Maybe you don't actually need an IDE. And then later on, I was prototyping using the Anthropic API, and the easiest way to do that was just building a little app in the terminal, because that way I didn't have to build a UI or anything. And I started just making a little chat app. And then I just started thinking maybe we could do something a little bit like Clyde. So let me build like a little Clyde. And it actually ended up being a lot more useful than that without a lot of work. And I think the biggest revelation for me was when we started to give the model tools, they just started using tools. And it was this insane moment. Like the model just wants to use tools. Like we gave it Bash, and it just started using Bash, writing AppleScript to like automate stuff. In response to questions. And I was like, this is just the craziest thing. I've never seen anything like this. Because at the time I had only used IDEs with like, you know, like text editing, a little like one-line autocomplete, multi-line autocomplete, whatever. So that's where this came from. It was this kind of convergence of like prototyping, but also kind of seeing what's possible in kind of like a very rough way. And this thing ended up being surprisingly useful. And I think it was the same for us. I think for me, it was like kind of Sonnet 4, Opus 4. That's where that magic moment was. Where it's like, oh my God, this thing works.
That's interesting. So, like, tell me about the tool moment, because I think that is one of the special things about Claude Code is it just writes Bash and it's really good at it. And I think a lot of previous agent architectures, or even anyone building an agent today, your first instinct might be, okay, we're going to give it a find file tool, and then we're going to give it a open file tool, and you build all these like custom wrappers for all the different actions you might want the agent to take. But Claude Code just uses Bash, and it's like really good at it. So how do you think about what you learned from that?
Yeah, I think we're at this point right now where Claude Code actually has a bunch of tools. I think it's like a dozen or something like this. We actually like add and remove tools most weeks, so this changes pretty often. But today there actually is a search. There's a tool for searching. And we do this for two reasons. One is the UX, so we can show the result a little bit nicer to the user because there's still a human in the loop right now for most tasks. And the second one is for permissions. So if you say in your like Claude Code like settings.json, this file you cannot read, we have to kind of enforce this. We enforce it for Bash, but we can do it a little bit more efficiently for if we have a specific search tool. But definitely we want to like unship tools and kind of keep it simple for the model. Like last week or 2 weeks ago, we unshipped the LS tool because in the past we needed it, but then we actually built a way to enforce this kind of permission system for Bash. So in Bash, if we know that you're not allowed to read a particular directory, Claude's not allowed to ls that directory. And because we can enforce that consistently, we don't need this tool anymore. And this is nice because it's a little less choice for Claude, a little less stuff in context.
Got it. And how do you guys split responsibility on the team?
I would say Boris sets the technical direction and has been the product visionary for a lot of the features that we've come out with. I see myself as more of like a supporting role to make sure that that like our pricing and packaging resonates with our users. Two, making sure that we're shepherding all our features across the launch process. So from like deciding, all right, like these are the prototypes that we should definitely ant food, to like setting the quality threshold for ant fooding, through to communicating that to our end users. And there's definitely some new initiatives that we're working on that I would say historically a lot of Claude Code has been built bottoms up. Like Boris and a lot of the core team members have just had these great ideas for to-do lists, sub-agents, hooks, like all of these are bottoms up. As we think about expanding to more surfaces and bringing Claude Code to more places, I think a lot of those are more like, all right, let's talk to customers, let's bring engineers into those conversations and prioritize those surfaces and knock them out.
Got it. What is ant fooding?
Oh, ant fooding is...
Oh, anth fooding?
Oh, it means dog fooding. Okay. So
Anthropic ants.
Yeah.
I got it.
Yeah, our nickname for internal employees is Ant, and so ant fooding is our version of dog fooding. Internally, over I think 70 or 80% of ants, technical Anthropic employees, use Claude Code every day, and so every time we are thinking about a new feature, we push it out to people internally, and we get so much feedback. Yeah. We have a feedback channel. I think we get a post every 5 minutes, and so you get really quick signal on whether people like it, whether it's buggy, or whether it's not good and we should unship it.
You can tell. You can tell that someone that is building stuff is using it all the time to build it, because the like its ergonomics just makes sense if you're trying to build stuff, and that only happens if you're like ant fooding. I think that's a really interesting paradigm for building new stuff, like that sort of bottoms up. I make something for myself. Tell me about that.
Yeah, and Kat is also so humble. I think Kat has a really big role in the product direction also. It comes from everyone on the team. And like these specific examples, this actually came from everyone on the team. Like to-do lists and sub-agents, that was Sid, hooks, yeah. Dixon shipped that, plugins, Daisy shipped that. So like everyone on the team, like these ideas come from everyone. And so I think for us, like we build this core agent loop and this kind of core experience, and then everyone on the team uses the product all the time. And so everyone outside the team uses the product all the time. And so there's just all these chances to build things that serve these needs. Like for example, like bash mode, like the exclamation mark, and you can type in bash commands. This was just like many months ago. I was using Claude Code, and I was going back and forth between two terminals and just thought it was kind of annoying. And just on a whim, I asked Claude to kind of think of ideas. I thought of this like exclamation mark bash mode. And then I was like, great, make it pink and then ship it. It just did it. And like that's the thing that still kind of persisted. And, you know, now you see kind of others also kind of catching on to that.
That's funny. I actually didn't know that. And that's extremely useful because I always have to open up a new tab to like run any bash commands. So you just do an exclamation point and then it just like runs it directly instead of filtering it through all the Claude stuff.
Yeah, and Claude Code sees the full output too.
Interesting. That's perfect.
So anything you see in the Claude Code view, Claude Code also sees.
Okay, that's really interesting.
Yeah. And this is kind of a UX thing that we're thinking about. Like in the past, tools were built for engineers, but now it's equal parts engineers and model. And so like as an engineer, you can see the output, but it's actually quite useful for the model also. And this is part of the philosophy also, like everything is dual use. So for example, the model can also call slash commands. So like, you know, I have a slash command for slash commit where I run through kind of a few different steps like diffing and generating a reasonable commit message and this kind of stuff. I run it manually, but also Claude can run this for me. And this is pretty useful because we get to share this logic. We get to kind of define this tool and then we both get to use it.
Yeah. What are the differences in designing tools that are dual use from designing tools that are, you know, used by one or the other?
Surprisingly, it's the same.
Okay.
So far. Yeah. I sort of feel like this kind of elegant design for humans translates really well to the models.
So you're just thinking about what would make sense to you, and the model generally, it makes sense to the model too, if it makes sense to you.
Yeah, I think one of the really cool things about Claude Code being a terminal UI and what made it work really well is that Claude Code has access to everything that an engineer does at the terminal. Yeah. And I think when it comes to whether the tool should be dual use or not, I think making them dual use actually makes the tools a lot easier to understand. It just means that, okay, everything you can do, Claude Code can do, there's nothing in between.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, there are a couple of those decisions. So no code editor. It's in the terminal, so it has access to your files. And it's on your computer versus like in the cloud in a virtual machine. So you get like repeated, you get to use it in a repeated way where you can like, you know, build up your Claude MD file or, you know, like all like build slash commands and all that kind of stuff where it becomes very composable and extensible from a very simple starting point. And I'm curious about how you think about, you know, for people who are thinking about, okay, I want to build an agent, I want to build probably not Claude Code, but like something else, how you get that simple package that then can extend and be really powerful over time.
For me, I'd start by just thinking about it like developing any kind of product where you have to solve the problem for yourself before you can solve it for others. And like this is something that they teach in YC is you have to start with yourself. So like if you can solve your own problem, it's much more likely you're solving the problem for others. And I think for coding, starting locally is the reasonable thing. And you know now we have Claude Code on the web, so you can also use it with a virtual machine. And you know, you can use it in a remote setting, and this is super useful when you're on the go. You want to kick something off from your phone. And this is sort of, we started proving this out kind of a step at a time, where you can do @Claude in GitHub. And I use this every day. Like on the way to work, I'm like at a red light. I probably shouldn't be doing this, but I'm like, you know, on GitHub at a red light, and then I'm like @Claude, you know, fix this issue or whatever. And so it's just really useful to be able to control it from your phone. And this kind of proves out this experience. I don't know if this necessarily makes sense for every kind of use case. For coding, I think starting local is right. I don't know if this is true for everything, though.
Got it. What are the slash commands you guys use?
/PR commit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the PR commit / command makes it a lot faster for Claude to know exactly what bash commands to run in order to make a commit.
And what does the PR commit / command do for people who aren't familiar?
Oh, it just tells it like exactly how to make a commit.
Okay.
And you can like you can say like, okay, these are the 3 bash commands that need to be run.
Got it.
And what's pretty cool is also we have this kind of templating system built into / commands. So we actually run the bash commands ahead of time. They're like embedded into the / command. And you can also pre-allow certain tool invocations. So for that / command, we say allow, you know, git commit, git push, GHPR. And so you don't get asked for permission after you run the / command because we have like a permission based security system. And then also it uses haiku. which is pretty cool. So it's kind of a cheaper model and faster. Yeah, and for me, I use like commit PR, feature dev we use a lot. So like Sid created this one. It's kind of cool. It kind of like walks you through step by step building something. So we prompt Claude like first ask me what exactly I want, like build the specification, and then kind of like build like a detailed plan, and then make a to-do list, walk through step by step. So it's kind of like more structured feature development. Yeah. And then I think the last one that we probably use a lot, so we use like security review for all of our PRs, and then also code review. So like Claude does all of our code review internally at Anthropic. There's still a human approving it, but Claude does kind of the first step in code review. That's just a /code review /command.
Got it. Yeah. What are the things I would love to go deeper into, like how do you make a good plan? So the sort of the feature dev thing, because I think there's a lot of like little tricks that I'm starting to find, or people at Every starting to find that work, and I'm curious like what are things that we're missing. So for example, one unintuitive step of the plan development process is, even if I don't exactly know what the thing that needs to be built is, I just have like a little sentence in my mind, like I want feature X. I have Claude just like implement it just without giving it anything else, and I see what it does. And that helps me understand like, okay, here's actually what I mean, because it made all these different mistakes, or like it did something that I didn't expect that might be good. And then I use that, like the learning from the sort of throwaway development, and just clear it out. And then that helps me write a better plan spec for the actual feature development, which is something that you would never do before, because it'd be too expensive to just like YOLO send an engineer on a feature that you hadn't actually spec'd out. But because you have Claude going through your code base and doing stuff, you can like learn stuff from it that helps inform the actual plan that you make.
Yeah, I feel maybe I can start, and I'm curious how you use it too. I think there's like a few different modes maybe for me. Like one is prototyping mode. Yeah. So like traditional engineering prototyping, you want to kind of build the simplest possible thing that touches all the systems, just so you can kind of get a vague sense of like what are the systems, there's unknowns, and just to kind of trace through everything. Yeah. And so I do the exact same thing as you, Dan. Like Claude just does the thing, and then I see where it messes up, and then I'll ask it to just throw it away and do it again. So just hit escape twice, go back to the old checkpoint, and then try again. I think there's also maybe two other kinds of tasks. So one is just things that Claude can one-shot, and I feel pretty confident it can do it. So I'll just tell it, and then I'll just go to a different tab, and I'll shift tab to auto accept, and then just go do something else, or go to another one of my Claudes and tend to that while it does this. But also there's this kind of like harder feature development. So these are, things are maybe in the past it would have taken like a few hours of engineering time. And for this, usually I'll shift tab into plan mode and then align on the plan first before it even writes any code. And I think what's really hard about this is the boundary changes with every model in kind of a surprising way, where the newer models, they're more intelligent. So the boundary of what you need plan mode for got pushed out like a little bit. Yeah. Like before you used to need to plan, now you don't. And I think this is general trend of like stuff that used to be scaffolding with a more advanced model, it gets pushed into the model itself. Right. And the model kind of tends to subsume everything over time.
Yeah. How do you think about like building a agent harness that isn't just gonna like you're not spending a bunch of time building stuff that is just gonna be subsumed into the model in 3 months when the new Claude comes out? Like, yeah, how do you know what to build versus what to just say it doesn't work quite yet, but next time it's gonna work, so we're not gonna spend time on it?
Ooh, I think we build most things that we think would improve Claude Code's capabilities, even if that means we'll have to get rid of it in 3 months. If anything, we hope that we will get rid of it in 3 months. I think for now, we just want to offer the most premium experience possible. And so we're not too worried about throwaway work.
Interesting.
Yeah, and an example of this is something like even like plan mode itself. I think we'll probably unship it at some point when Claude can just figure out from your intent that you probably want to plan first. Or, for example, I just deleted like 2,000 tokens or something from the system prompt yesterday, just because like Sonnet 4.5 doesn't need it anymore. But Opus 4.1 did need it.
What about, in the case where the latest frontier, model doesn't need it, but, you're trying to figure out how to make it more efficient because you have so many users that, you're not going to use Opus or Sonnet 4.5 for everything. Maybe you're going to use Haiku. So there's a trade-off between having a more elaborate harness for Haiku versus just like not spending time on it, using Sonnet, eating the cost, and working on more frontier type stuff.
In general, we've positioned Claude Code to be a very premium offering. So our North Star is making sure that it works incredibly well with the absolutely most powerful model we have, which is Sonnet 4.5 right now. We are investigating how to make it work really well for like future generations of smaller models, but it's not the top priority for us.
Okay. What do you think about, one thing that I notice is we get models often, and thank you very much for this, we get models a lot before they come out, and it's our job to kind of figure out, is it any good? And over the last 6 months, when I'm testing Claude, for example, in the Claude app, with a new frontier model, it's actually very hard to tell whether it's better immediately. But it's really easy to tell in Claude Code because the harness matters a lot for the performance that you get out of the model. And you guys have the benefit of building Claude Code inside of Anthropic. So there's like a much tighter integration between the fundamental like model training and the harness that you're building, and they seem to kind of like really impact each other. So how does that work internally, and what are the benefits you get from having that like tight integration?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is like researchers just use this, and so as they see what's working and what's not, they can improve stuff. We do like a lot of evals and things like that to kind of communicate back and forth and understand where exactly the model's at. But yeah, there's this frontier where you need to give the model a hard enough task to really push the limit of the model. And if you don't do this, then all models are kind of equal. But if you give it a pretty hard task, you can tell the difference.
What subagents do you use?
I have a few. I have like a planner subagent that I use. I have a code review subagent. Code review is actually something where sometimes I use a subagent, sometimes I use a slash command. So usually in CI it's a slash command, but in synchronous use I use a subagent for the same thing.
Why?
It's a good question. Yeah, maybe it's like a matter of taste. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's maybe when you're running synchronously, it's kind of nice to fork off the context window a little bit, because all the stuff that's going on in the code review, it's not relevant to what I'm doing next. But in CI, it just doesn't matter.
Are you ever spawning like 10 subagents at once? And for what?
For me, I do it mostly for like big migrations.
Okay.
That's like the big thing. Actually, we have, so this like code review slash command that we use, there's a bunch of subagents there. And so one of the steps is like find all the issues. And so there's one subagent that's like checking for Claude MD compliance. There's another subagent that's looking through Git history to see what's going on. Another subagent that's looking for kind of obvious bugs. And then we do this like kind of deduping quality step after. So they find a bunch of stuff. A lot of these are false positives. And so then we spawn like 5 more subagents. And these are all just like checking for false positives. And in the end, the result is awesome. It finds like all the real issues without the false issues.
That's great. I actually do that. So one of my non-technical Claude Code use cases is expense filing. So like when I'm in SF right now, so like I have all these expenses, and so I built this little Claude project that, or in Claude Code that it uses one of these finance APIs to just download all my credit card transactions, and then it decides like these are probably the expenses that I'm going to have to like file. And then I have 2 subagents, one that represents me and one that represents the company, and they like do battle to like figure out like what's the proper like actual set of expenses. It's like an auditor subagent and like a pro Dan subagent. So yeah, that kind of thing. The sort of like opponent processor pattern seems to be like an interesting one.
Yeah, it's cool. I feel like when subagents were first becoming a thing, actually what inspired us, there's like a Reddit thread a while back where someone made subagents for like, there was like a front end dev and a back end dev and like a, I think like a designer. Testing dev. Like there was like a PM subagent. And this is like, it's cute. Like it feels like a little maybe too anthropomorphic. Maybe there's something to this, but I think like the value is actually like the uncorrelated context windows, where you have like these 2 context windows that don't know about each other. And this is kind of interesting. And you tend to get better results this way.
What about you? Do you have any interesting subagents you use?
So I've been tinkering with one that is really good at front-end testing. So it uses Playwright to like see, all right, what are like all the errors that are client-side, and pull them in and try to test more steps of the app. It's not totally there yet, but I'm seeing signs of life, and I think it's the kind of thing that we could potentially bundle in one of our plugins marketplaces.
Yeah, definitely. I've used something like that just with Puppeteer, and just like watching it build something and then open up the browser and then be like, oh, I need to change this. It's like, this is like, oh my God.
Yeah, it's
like
really
magic.
cool.
It's really cool. I think we're starting to see the beginnings of this like massive, like massive sub-agents. I don't know what to call this, like swarms or something like that. There's a bunch of people, actually an increasing number of people internally at Anthropic that are using like a lot of credits every month, like, like spending like over $1,000 every month. And this percent of people is growing actually pretty fast. And I think the common use case is like code migration. And so what they're doing is like framework A to framework B. There's like the main agent, it makes a big to-do list for everything. And then just kind of map reduce over a bunch of sub agents. So you instruct Claude like, start 10 agents and then just go like, 10 at a time and just migrate all the stuff over.
That's interesting. What would be a concrete example of the kind of migration that you're talking about?
I think the most classic is like lint rules. So there's like, there's some kind of lint rule you're rolling out. There's no auto fixer because it's like, like AST analysis is kind of too simplistic for it. I think other stuff is like framework migrations. Like we just migrated from like one testing framework to a different one. That's a pretty common one where it's super easy to verify the output.
One of the things that I found is, and this is both for projects inside of Every and then just open source projects. It's like if you're someone building a product and you want to build a feature that's been done before. So maybe like an example that people might need to implement a bunch is like memory. How do you do memory? Because we have a bunch of different products internally, you can just like spawn Claude subagents to be like, how do these 3 other products do it? And there's like possibility for just like tacit code sharing where you don't need to like have an API or you don't need to like ask anyone. You can just be like, how do we do this already? And then use the best practices to build your own. And you can also do that with open source because there's like tons of open source projects where people are like, they've been working on memory for like a year and it's like really, really good. And you can be like, what are the patterns that people have figured out and which ones do I want to implement?
Totally. You can also connect to your version control system. If you've built a similar feature in the past, Claude Code can use those APIs, like query GitHub directly, and find how people implemented a similar feature in the past and read that code and copy the relevant parts.
Yeah, is there have you found any use for like log files of here's the full history of like how I implemented it, and like is that important to give to Claude, and how are you implementing that or making it useful for it?
Some people swear by it. There are some people at Anthropic where for every task they do, they tell Claude Code to write a diary entry in a specific format that just documents like, what did it do? What did it try? Why didn't it work? And then they even have these agents that like look over the past memory and synthesize it into observations. I think this is like the starting budding, like there's like something interesting here that we could productize. But it's a new emerging pattern that we're seeing that works well. I think the hard thing about like one-shotting memory from just one transcript is that it's hard to know how relevant a specific instruction is to all future tasks. Like our canonical example is, if I say make the button pink, I don't want you to remember to make all buttons pink in the future. And so I think synthesizing the memory from a lot of logs is a way to find these patterns more consistently.
It seems like you probably need, like, there's some things where you're gonna know, you'll be able to synthesize or summarize in this sort of like top-down way. Like this will be useful later, and you'll know the right level of abstraction at which it might be useful. But then there's also a lot of stuff where it's like you actually, any given like commit log, like make the button pink, it could be useful for kind of an infinite number of different reasons that you're not going to know beforehand. So you also need the model to be able to look up all similar past, commits and surface that at the right time. Is that something that you're also thinking about?
Yeah, I think there could be something like that. And maybe I think one way to see it is this kind of like traditional memory storage work, like memex, like kind of stuff where you just want to like put all the information into the system, and then it's kind of a retrieval problem after that. Yeah, I think as the model also gets smarter, I've seen it start to naturally do this also with Sonnet 4.5, where if it's stuck on something, it'll just naturally start looking, like we talked about before, like using bash spontaneously to just like look through Git history and be like, oh, okay, yeah, this is kind of an interesting way to do it.
Yeah. One of the things that we were talking before we started recording, one of the things that we're doing inside of Every, like I feel like it has really changed the way that we do engineering because everyone is Claude Code pilled, like CLI pilled. And we have this engineering paradigm that we call compounding engineering, where in normal engineering, every feature you add, it makes it harder to add the next feature. And in compounding engineering, your goal is to make the next feature easier to build from the feature that you just added. And the way that we do that is we try to codify all the learnings from everything that we've done to build the feature. So like, how did we make the plan and what parts of the plan needed to be changed? Or like when we started testing it, like what issues did we find? What are the things that we missed? And then we codify them back into all the prompts and all the subagents and all the / commands so that the next time when someone does something like this, it catches it and that makes it easier. And that's why for me, for example, I can like hop into one of our code bases and start like being productive, even though I don't know anything about how the code works, because we have this like built up memory system of all the stuff that we've learned as we've implemented stuff. But we've had to build that ourselves. I'm curious, are you working on that kind of loop so the Claude Code does that automatically?
Yeah, we're starting to think about it. It's funny. We were just we heard the same thing from Fiona. She just joined the team, and she's our manager. She hasn't coded in like 10 years, something like that. And she was landing PRs on her first day, and she was like, yeah, like not only did I forgot how to code, and Claude Code kind of made it super easy to just get back into it. Yeah. But also I didn't need to ramp up on any context because I kind of knew all this. And I think a lot of it is about like when people put up pull requests for Claude Code itself, and I think our customers tell us that they do like similar stuff pretty often. If you see a mistake, I'll just be like, at Claude, add this to Claude MD so that the next time it just knows this automatically. And you can kind of like instill this memory in kind of a variety of ways. So you can say like at Claude, add it to Claude MD. You can also say at Claude, write a test. That's like an easy way to make sure this doesn't regress. And I don't feel bad asking anyone to write tests anymore.
Right.
It's just like super easy. And like I think probably close to 100% of our tests are just written by Claude. And if they're bad, we just won't commit it. And then the good ones stay committed. And then also I think lint rules are a big one. So for stuff that's enforced pretty often, we actually have a bunch of internal lint rules. Claude writes 100% of these. And this is mostly just like at Claude in a PR, write this lint rule. And yeah, there's sort of this problem right now about like how do you do this automatically? And I think generally how like Kat and I think about it is we see this like power user behavior, and the first step is how do you enable that by making the product hackable so the best users can figure out how to do this cool new thing. Right. But then really the hard work starts of like how do you take this and bring it to everyone else? Yeah. And for me, I count myself in the everyone else bucket. Like, I don't really know how to use Vim. Like, I don't have this like crazy like tmux setup. So I have like a pretty vanilla setup. So if you can make a feature that I'll use, it's a pretty good indicator that like other kind of average engineers will use it.